Every day, around 400 billion emails are sent around the world. We're communicating with each other more now than ever, but we're drowning in information and we've never been more misunderstood. A common language is failing in real time, with critical thinking and nuanced discussion falling by the wayside. Some people try and speak louder. They try and take more extreme points of view. But the rest of us, we're sitting by the sidelines and watching a spectacle unfold. In this video, we're going to explore how systems like the algorithm, they use our biology and our psychology against us for their own profit. A lot of people used to see the media as being independent and effectively a mirror as to what's going on in the world. But most people now see that it was really a mask. It hid centralized power dynamics at play that we're now starting to see. And they're not objective, they're subjective. Think about it. You have editors, people in charge who decide what the narrative is going to be, how the story is going to be framed, who they're going to interview, how they want the viewer to feel about it. They focus on the worst 1% of things going on in the world. Not the good things, always the bad things. And in many ways, it's kind of treated as a weapon because a lot of the time, if you watch the news, you're left feeling overwhelmed and just depleted. Not only that, we get overwhelmed these days by just the sheer volume of information we consume. We live in the information age, and when we think of the information age, a lot of people think it's a time of enlightenment, of people getting better. I can understand the romantic aspect of that, but I don't think that's true. I think the information age is, in a way, an age of madness. We have so much information, like I said earlier, 400 billion emails a day, that it drives us mad because we don't understand the context of everything coming through to us. We don't know how to make sense of it. And so, it's a bit like a flood. There's this concept called flooding the zone, and tech companies exploit us using this concept. Flooding the zone effectively means that we're given so much information when we're online, like on social media platforms, that we don't know what to do with it, and instead of being able to react with rational thought, we react out of reflex. And so in that sort of environment, of course, we fight. Online, if we engage in arguments or debates, we like to think that we're arguing with humans. But half the time, it seems we're probably not. You might have heard of the dead internet theory. It's the theory that most of the traffic online is not human generated in nature. Well, that's been confirmed to be true. There was a 2026 Imperva report. It basically confirms that 51% of internet traffic is being driven by bots. And they're not just any bot. Most of them are malicious in nature. The good kind, driven by the likes of Google, represent a small portion of that. So if you're arguing with someone online, are you arguing with a phantom? An AI who doesn't care what you have to say and is immune to your attacks? But even if you are engaging with another human, you're engaging with someone who's being triggered by the environment themselves, and they're just acting on their reflexes. And that makes me realize and see a lot of the fanaticism that we see online is a result of this. There's no nuance anymore, or at least it's decreasing. And so we see a lot of fanaticism online. You wonder why? Well, it's because nuance can't survive online. Too much complexity, too much information, and people just basically have to do what they can with their biology, and arguments devolve into simple yeses or nos, us versus them, just to survive. And what it leads to is biological damage. Now, if you think about a machine, we don't normally run them at 100% capacity most of the time, because if we did, they'd become obsolete very quickly and it just doesn't make any economic sense. We're biological beings and we're effectively hardware, and the same thing applies to us. There's this thing called allostatic slack. Basically, it's the idea that if we run at 100% capacity all the time or close to it, then minor things that wouldn't have had any impact on us in the past become major emergencies to us. And in the environment where we have little sleep, little silence, we're always getting notifications from our devices, that becomes more of a reality for more of us. We have a minor emergency, a family issue, a disagreement. It becomes something that we cannot absorb and we basically shatter as a result. We're brittle. And this is compounded as well by something called the Larsen effect. We all like to think of ourselves as having a democratic conversation where our opinions carry equal weight. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because when you're having an argument online, the most extreme opinions get amplified. And millions of followers see those extreme opinions, and it's a little bit like an echo chamber with that message bouncing around and being amplified more and more. This is basically the Larsen effect. It's like putting a microphone close to a speaker and hearing that reverberation, that really annoying noise that comes out of it. In this sort of environment, everyone's rationality gets obliterated. When we debate people online, we like to assume that we're using the logical part of our brain, called the prefrontal cortex. But we're actually not. We're using what's called the insular cortex. It's associated with the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes pain, fear, and threat. So when we're engaging with someone online, we take it as a threat. That political debate, you feel like you're being attacked. And so logic is bypassed. All of this happens while we're sitting there on their couch. And while we're there on the couch, we feel like we're being hunted. And that's because of our biology and the fact that cortisol and adrenaline gets dumped into our bloodstream. The political debate, which should be intellectual in nature, becomes a matter of survival to the mind. You're in a fight state. And in that state, our biology, our minds degrade. We have less understanding, we have less compassion for our fellow human beings. What we're learning that truth is fatal. And as a society, we're regressing. When we share our opinions, we like to think that we're sharing an objective truth of the world. In an online environment, we unconsciously realize that this is associated with high stakes, high threat. The reptilian mind that we don't consciously think about equates it with death. So even though we want to share objective truth, we have this unconscious fear. We want to belong to a tribe. And what we see more and more these days is a greater loneliness epidemic. We're more and more isolated in this digital environment. And as a result, we see more extreme views, with people shifting to different online communities so they have some sort of space to be safe in. But while it might be safer for the individual, it's becoming unsafer for society with all these splintering tribes and groups. We see online as well there are a lot more insane opinions, and it's easy to think that people with these insane opinions are just uneducated. But what if it's a sign of tribal loyalty? I mean, it's very easy to think a rational, centrist sort of opinion, but it's a bit of a badge of honor if you go out and take an extreme point of view that's aligned to your tribe. This is what's called costly signal theory. It's basically the idea that doing this is a proof of a devotion to the cause. But the problem with this is that it creates an environment where there's a greater and greater disgust for outsiders. Now, speaking of disgust, of course politics comes up. Maybe in the past we would have had healthy political debates, but not these days. According to a 2022 Pew Research report surveying Americans, both a majority of Republicans and Democrats viewed the other side as being immoral. That's very scary. If you think that your political opponents are immoral, how do you come back from that as a society? How can you work with each other? How can you reconcile? We're living in a world that is becoming ever more polarized, ever more combative. I think for a lot of us, we like to think that this is just a manifestation of the environment right now, that we're unique, that this hasn't happened before. But of course it has. History repeats, or more, history rhymes. It would be easy to look at this and think of this being a unique situation that we're experiencing right now. But that's not true. If we look back to history, we do tend to see that, well, it doesn't repeat, it tends to rhyme. In the 6th century AD, there was the Byzantine Empire, and they had the chariot races going on, like in ancient Roman times. They had two teams, the Blues and the Greens. Like football clubs, their fans were fanatical. They wore specific clothes, had specific customs, and they had rivalries that got so bad that at one point 30,000 people died as a result of a disagreement after a race. This got worse in the subsequent centuries, and eventually there was religious fanaticism where you'd have to use, like I said before, that costly signaling theory. You'd have to do extreme things to prove your loyalty to the side. People were so sick of it that when the Arabs invaded, they were happy to have new leaders. Their disintegration of society led to the invasion of the Arabs and it being successful. They were blind to their own self-destruction. Are we in a similar position now? Many people who engage in online activism are doing so with the intent of making the world a better place. If we look at biology, there's the idea that sometimes the body goes into overdrive in response to an infection. The immune system effectively starts attacking the body. In many ways, digital activism is doing the same thing. It's attacking society and not making it better, it's making it a worse place. It's a documented phenomenon. It's called the Semmelweis reflex. It's basically the idea that the mind involuntarily rejects evidence to the contrary of an ideological belief. If we feel like we're being attacked, it makes sense that we want to do things that involve looking after ourselves. Maybe we run a bath, maybe we have a massage, maybe we watch our favorite TV show or listen to our favorite music. While that's good in the moment and helps, it's not enough to combat what's going on across the world. And we're told that doing these sort of things is important for us and will make us better, but it's a bit of gaslighting as well though. We're at such a point now where the world's on fire, we're stuck in a burning building. There's that meme of the dog, I think it's a dog, sitting in the burning building and everything's okay. Well, it's like saying, hey, take a bath and everything will be okay while the building's on fire. It's just ridiculous. It's not enough. Now, the solution for this is particularly difficult because it involves our society changing. It involves everyone waking up and becoming cognizant of the fact of what's going on. But what I can offer you is just logging off, and this is probably a little trite, you hear this all the time, but logging off digital media solves so many issues. This one just being one of many. Take some time away. Stop the addiction loop from going on. And I admit I am addicted to a lot of the time and I need to take my own advice, and I'm slowly doing that. Having a few hours off here or there, or a day off here and there, but it helps. Because in that state, when you have the time to think about what you want to do with your life, you can start to build a future. This is what I've done myself. Starting this channel, I have had a lot of time in silence over the last year or two to kind of think about that. And in that silence, in that time off your phone, you finally have the capacity to think about what you want to build for your future. Now, we can't stay off forever. We will have to log back on again. And I'm sure a lot of us will still go back in and engage in the comment section. I get it. But if you take anything away from this, obviously don't fight. But on the other hand, don't be a weak centrist and don't be like, oh, well, both sides have an opinion. Oh, I don't want to cause any issues. Avoiding debate doesn't help anyone. Engage in the debates that actually matter to you. Engage in debates where you can have nuance and you can provide a perspective to the other side that, for those who are willing to listen, they can take it on board. You steelman the other side's argument and offer a solution. We need to stand for what really matters to us and hold all opinions in mind and come to that right conclusion. And what I notice as well is that we have a lot more in common than we realize. Even if you take it from the perspective that we're all reacting the same way because we're being manipulated in the same way. We're being made to think we have more differences than we really have because of the algorithm, because of the engagement and the profits that are being driven around that. Just something to think about. All right. Thanks, guys.